Marco Ebben is geboren op 31 maart 1992 in Rotterdam en nu dus 31 jaar oud. Tip, als u iets over zijn verblijfplaats weet of vermoedt, maar benader hem niet zelf, dat is gevaarlijk.
The Netherlands has been prominent for the last decade in making its way to Europe's most wanted list, due to the numerous notorious and dangerous criminals like Ridouan Taghi and Leijdekkers, better known as El Presidente or Balayas. While the Dutch state was making substantial strides in hunting down these hazardous elements, another Dutchman would actually make his way to the list. The man Marco Ebben, a low-key Dutch drug lord who had gone untraced for years, suddenly appeared in Europol's Most Wanted in 2023, further bringing shame to the country's law enforcing departments. Born on the 31st of March in 1992 in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, Marco Ebben grew up in the crime-flooded streets along with his father Henk, who also lived on the wrong side of the law. We don't know much about Marco's childhood, except for the fact that he grew up with his father's influence, who himself was involved in drug trafficking within the state and ordering hits on those who are a threat or danger to the trade. More importantly, we know that one way or another, Marco would follow in his father's footsteps and would enter the drug trafficking business, transferring hundreds of kilos of drugs into the state through Rotterdam. But a rather casual incident, a single murder attempt, which for them wasn't that big of a deal, would end up being the thing that left them vulnerable for years to come. It was Thursday, February 14th of 2013, when a passerby saw a green Daihatsu Grand Move with the door open, parked in the Omar district of Rotterdam, which was quite deserted at that time. The man would approach this door and see inside that the driver was deceased. He was slumped to the right and had fresh gunshot wounds, with blood coming out of them. The driver had clearly been shot dead, but there were no witnesses that saw it, and the man who approached didn't hear the gunshots or any type of hassle or have any idea what could have caused this. Luckily, police could successfully identify the man. The man was identified as Pepijn van der Velden, a 32-year-old ex-roofer who was shot at point-blank range in his mother's car. The police found that Pepijn was carrying a gun, but the reason remained unknown. Pepijn belonged to the Sterrenburg district of Dordrecht, where he worked as a roofer for a while until he decided to try earning money through faster and deadlier ways. A lot of the information we have is from an anonymous friend who knew van der Velden and attended the gym with him. He became increasingly nervous and agitated, little at home and always on the road for vague appointments about which he never said anything. In the end, I would even find him scared. This would all be reported to the detectives about this odd lifestyle. The detectives would learn about this odd lifestyle and reveal that Pepijn was indeed involved with the underworld. He was burdened with a pile of debts from dangerous people. And who knows, maybe he had debts to more people. He was careless about that. And of course, that could be life-threatening, especially in the circles where he moved. After a month of investigation, the police somehow narrowed down their suspicions to Marco Ebben and his father Henk, who by that time were off the police's radar, commencing their operations in peace. Yet the police raided Marco's home as well as his father's and arresting both of them for the murder of Pepijn van der Velden, and they searched their homes for the murder weapon. But the police remained unable to find the weapon or prove that either men were behind Pepijn's murder, and both of them would be released after 3 months of jail pleading their innocence. It was a clear win for both father and son, as they thought they were off the hook, but the police would trail their every move, still suspecting them of the murders. Ironically, what would fall into their laps was much bigger than what they expected. But how'd this all happen? Let's see how it went down. Unaware of the police on their tail, Marco would resume conducting the drug trafficking activities in an attempt to step up the business. So he would partner with Gerrit G in 2014. Gerrit was a corrupt customs officer who held significant influence in the port of Rotterdam, where he had been working since 1981 and took charge of the entire pre-arrival dock in 2009. Gerrit would be the missing cog in Marco's plan to rise exponentially in the underworld, and this partnership would prove extremely profitable for the both of them. Gerrit oversaw the pre-arrival docks where the suspected containers from high-risk countries arrived, and the contents would only be checked if Gerrit wanted them to be checked. Having charge of such an important part of the port, plus knowledge of every nook and cranny of the whole Rotterdam port, Gerrit would prove to be a golden sparrow, a kingmaker of the drug ring. Garrett himself would benefit from this deal too, let's be clear. He received up to 500,000 euros per successful shipment, and sometimes even up to 30% of the shipment's value. The group initiated a small shipment of coke hidden between Maripapam as a test in June of 2014, and the shipment was a success, as revealed by the PGP messages. Following that, another shipment from the dock of Hamonia, Antofagasta, containing 100 kilos of coke was meant to be unloaded on the port of Rotterdam, and the containers were supposed to be checked. Garrett successfully checked these containers of Rotterdam. This was February of 2015, and the sweet partnership was just getting started. Marco, along with his father and the newly found partner Garrett, wanted another attempt to smuggle hundreds of kilos of coke and other drugs through the ports of Rotterdam. But this greed is what would prove to be disastrous for all of them. Witnessing this kind of success emerge in smuggling the drugs and earning loads of money from them, the gang was eager to do it again. Now for this purpose, they would organize another shipment from Brazil through the Marfrit Marajo. As expected, the shipment would arrive on the 17th of April of 2015, but unexpectedly, it didn't make it out of port this time. Garrett would fail to get the containers of the checklist, resulting in the confiscation of 400 kilos of coke, which had been hidden in the pineapples. The police had been monitoring the shipment along with the cooperation of customs, after receiving an anonymous tip that Garrett was involved in a drug smuggling ring. After that, the police would silently follow Garrett until shipment day, where they raided his home and found 1.17 million euros in cash, along with Garrett, who would become a significant climb in Marco's trail. As we continue, don't forget that your engagement can play a crucial role in this narrative. If you're finding this video interesting and informative, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Garrett being under scrutiny would yield further incriminating evidence against Marco, as voice recordings of his discussions on smuggling tactics with Garrett surfaced, strengthening police suspicion of Marco's involvement in the illicit trade. Now following this, Marco Ebben would be arrested 2 years later in 2017. The prosecutor saw a 12-year prison term, with much of the evidence derived from covertly recorded conversations within Marco's residence and vehicle. Marco had been unaware that the police had installed microphones nearby him, enabling them to monitor his conversations with his father about the trade for an extended period. Throughout this police investigation and the lengthy trial spanning weeks, Marco would remain silent. However, on the final day of the trial, he would break his silence, expressing his desire for a fair trial to the court. "It won't be easy when I come out ever again. My grandfather passed, my dog passed, and my relationship is over. To the prosecutors saying I'm some kind of big player, that's all nonsense." Marco and his lawyer would successfully appeal the sentence, and as a result, Marco was allowed to roam freely for the rest of the trial. But the police were not the only ones hunting down Marco. Rather, there were several other groups who also had a bone to pick with him. On the 14th of May of 2020, Marco Ebben would narrowly escape a possible assassination attempt near Scheffel, resulting in a high-speed chase that concluded at a pizzeria in Bedevorp. Around 7:45, Marco dialed the police emergency line in a panic, reporting that he had been targeted in a shooting and managed to evade the assassination attempt. The police responded swiftly, arriving at the scene with multiple vehicles and a helicopter, discovering Marco and another individual inside his black Range Rover. After an investigation of the area, police could not confirm if shots had been fired, as they found no casings or suspects. Additionally, Marco was not cooperating. He refused to reveal anything except for the part where he mentioned he was being followed by a BMW traveling from Amsterdam to Rotterdam. When he accelerated to escape, the BMW pursued and shots were allegedly fired at his car. But according to sources from the criminal environment, Marco was being chased because he ripped off an organization with several batches of coke. No arrest would be made in connection to the incident. Whatever the case may have been, Marco would eventually receive a sentence of 7 years and 4 months on October 7th of 2020. But regardless of the appeal outcome, Marco had no intention of serving his time and would vanish before the verdict. Marco chose to live his life on the run, and he would remain elusive for the next 3 years. But on November 17th of 2023, things would change drastically. The state would spread his fugitive status not just in the Netherlands, but throughout all of Europe, putting his name in Europe's most wanted list. Now, as we conclude this video, we get to learn more that no matter who you have on your side or how keen you are, every crime has a downfall. Ultimately, these criminals are hooked on the scale of judgment sooner or later. Ultimately, whether it's Marco, his father, or even the rot inside the system like Garrett G, everyone faces the consequences of their actions.